All right, Team Semiconductor. Nvidia just dropped its fiscal Q1 2027 numbers after the bell on May 20th, and I know exactly what you're thinking. The company prints revenue of $81.6 billion and announces an $80 billion stock buyback plus a 25-cent dividend, up from basically zero previously. And the stock still goes down? Why? Well, welcome to Nvidia earnings season in 2026, where the bar is so impossibly high that even a monster quarter can feel just lukewarm. Today, we're going to break down exactly what Nvidia reported, why the market yawned, what Jensen Huang said on the call that actually matters, and this is the big one, how this earnings report is rippling through the semiconductor ecosystem all the way from Taiwan to Korea, Japan, and China. By the end of this video, you'll know not just whether Nvidia is still king, but which stocks in its supply chain are popping, which ones are flat, and why the Korean stock market triggered an upside circuit breaker. Let's get into it. The numbers. Ishe. First, the raw digits. Nvidia reported Q1 fiscal year 2027 revenue of $81.6 billion, which is $2.4 billion above the $79.2 billion expected. Adjusted earnings per share came in at $1.87 versus Wall Street's estimate of $1.77. Data center revenue, the engine room of the global AI story, hit $75.2 billion, up 92% year-on-year and up 21% versus the previous quarter. Gross margin was 75% on the nose, right in line with expectations. For context, Nvidia's quarterly revenue is now nearly as large as what Intel and AMD combined generate in an entire year. It's not even a fair fight anymore. It's like bringing a Star Destroyer to a pod race. And the guidance? Nvidia guided Q2 revenue midpoint of $91 billion versus the so-called whisper number from buy-side expectations of $91 to $92 billion. So revenue guidance was pretty much bang in line, which in Nvidia land is somehow treated as a disappointment, the gift that stopped giving. That's the curse of being the world's most valuable company. When you're priced for perfection, in line can feel like a miss. The stock reaction. Let's talk about the stock because this is where the psychology gets really interesting. In the regular session before the earnings, Nvidia shares traded up 1.3%. Then the earnings hit, and within minutes the stock slid as much as 3.2% in after hours before stabilizing around negative 1.4%. So why did a beat and raise quarter get greeted with a sell-off? 3 reasons. Number 1, expectations had simply gotten out over their skis. Analyst estimates ranged as high as $96 billion for the Q2 revenue guidance, so the $91 billion midpoint, while above the average, didn't satisfy the most bullish scenarios. Number 2, China. CFO Colette Kress explicitly said the guidance includes zero data center compute revenue from China. That's a market Jensen Huang has previously said could be worth $50 billion a year. And it's currently generating nothing, with lots of question marks surrounding the future of this. And number 3, the law of large numbers. Nvidia has added roughly $1.2 trillion in market cap since April 1st alone, but as a percentage gain, it has lagged the broader semiconductor index. When you're a $5 trillion company, growing fast enough to move the stock higher gets mathematically harder every quarter. Over all time periods, 1 month, 3 months, year to date, Nvidia has lagged the SAX semiconductor index in percentage terms, even though it has added more absolute dollars of market cap than almost the rest of the sector combined. In fact, a Wall Street trading desk analyst described the after-hours reaction as a knife fight. The earnings call deep dive. Now let's go inside the earnings call, because this is where Jensen Huang dropped several things that genuinely matter for the long-term investment thesis. First, the AI spending forecast. Nvidia's CFO raised the company's estimate for total AI infrastructure spending through 2030 to between $3 to $4 trillion. That's up from previous forecasts, and it reflects the accelerating build-out of what Huang calls AI factories. His exact line from the call, "The build-out of AI factories The largest infrastructure expansion in human history is accelerating at extraordinary speed. That's not a CEO throwing around buzzwords. That's a statement backed by $145 billion in total supply commitments, inventory, purchase commitments, and prepaids that Nvidia has already locked in. Second, the CPU blowout. This was arguably the single biggest revelation of the call. Nvidia disclosed that it expects to generate at least $20 billion in standalone CPU revenue this year. For context, AMD, the company that has dominated the server CPU conversation for the last 5 years, posted less than $20 billion in total CPU revenue over the last 4 quarters. Nvidia is essentially walking into year 1 of being a CPU vendor and immediately claiming the crown. Jensen framed this around the rise of agentic AI, the idea that billions of AI agents will need CPU cores for orchestration, tool use, and memory management. While the heavy thinking happens on GPUs, the Vera CPU, one of Nvidia's products, he said, was designed to be an agentic CPU with 1.5 times the performance per core and 2 times the performance per watt of x86 alternatives. Third, Vera Rubin status. Jensen confirmed that Vera Rubin, the next-generation architecture, is on track to commence production shipments in the second half of this year, starting in fiscal Q3. He also said the platform will be supply-constrained throughout its entire life, which is both a warning and a flex. It means demand is so far ahead of supply that Nvidia is effectively sold out before it even begins shipping. Fourth, the competition question. When asked about inference-specific chips like those from Grok and Cerebras, Jensen didn't flinch. He called SRAM-based decode-focused accelerators a niche product for some time to come, estimating they address likely less than 20% of the market. His core argument is that Nvidia's integrated platform, GPUs, CPUs, networking, software, durability, time to production, delivers the lowest lifetime cost per token, which is the metric that actually matters to hyperscalers. While you can swap out certain parts of the Nvidia ecosystem to effectively min-max your data center stats, Jensen is basically saying it will cost you a lot more for not very significant improvements. The bigger picture, competition, margins, and capital returns. Nvidia may be the undisputed king, but challengers are circling. AMD has been gaining ground with its MI series accelerators and recently announced major partnerships with Meta and OpenAI. Broadcom is aggressively pushing custom ASICs. Google has formed a joint venture with Blackstone to sell access to its TPU chips. Amazon is reportedly preparing to sell its Trainium AI chips externally. Does any of this keep Jensen Huang up at night? Probably not, at least not yet. Nvidia's data center revenue continues to grow faster than hyperscaler capex, which means the company is actually gaining share within its customers' wallets. And with the new segmentation Nvidia introduced this quarter, splitting data center into hyperscale and ACIE, AI clouds, industrial, and enterprise, we can now see that the non-hyperscale business grew 31% sequentially and now represents nearly half of all data center revenue. This is the diversification story investors have been asking for. On margins, Nvidia reiterated that it expects to maintain gross margins in the mid-70% range for the full fiscal year. Operating expenses are now expected to grow in the high 40% range year over year, as the company invests aggressively in R&D and its ecosystem. And on capital returns for investors, Nvidia authorized an additional $80 billion in share buybacks, bringing the total number to $119 billion. This represents 2.3% of the company's market cap. The quarterly dividend was hiked from 1 penny to 25 cents per share. That's a 25x increase, which sounds massive, but in yield terms it's still modest, about 0.45% annually. Although it does match the dividend yields of the multi-trillion-dollar club members like Apple's a 0.36% yield, Google's 0.23% yield, and Microsoft's 0.86% yield. The buyback is really the main event here, and it signals that management sees the stock as undervalued even at these levels. Supply chain and global stock reactions. This is where it gets really fun. Because Nvidia earnings don't just move Nvidia's stock, they move entire stock markets. Let's do a quick trip around the world. Korea. The Kospi literally melted up. Right after Nvidia's earnings came out, the Kospi index surged more than 8%, triggering a buy-side sidecar, a 5-minute trading halt designed to cool off overheated markets. Samsung Electronics jumped more than 8%, and SK Hynix lifted off over 11%. Now, part of that was driven by Samsung's union suspending a planned strike that had threatened to disrupt global chip supply. But the Nvidia read-through was absolutely a factor as well. Why do Samsung and SK Hynix care so much about Nvidia? Because they supply the high-bandwidth memory, HBM, that Nvidia's GPUs cannot function without. SK Hynix currently controls about 62% of the global HBM market, while Samsung trails at roughly 17%. SK Hynix's entire 2026 output is already sold out. These two Korean giants are effectively the memory arms of the Nvidia empire. Next, we move to Taiwan. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, better known as TSMC. The company that actually manufactures every single Blackwell and Rubin GPU saw its stock move up as much as 3.2%. TSMC shares are up about 33% year-to-date, outpacing Nvidia's 20% gain. But there's a clear tension here. Nvidia's growth is ultimately gated by TSMC's advanced packaging capacity. As one analyst put it, if TSMC did what Jensen wanted, Nvidia could sell $2 trillion of GPUs in 2026 or 2027. The bottleneck is real, and it's a double-edged sword. Great for TSMC's pricing power, but a constraint on Nvidia's upside. What about China? Well, complicated as always. Chinese semiconductor stocks surged. SMIC jumped as much as 5.6% in Hong Kong trading. Hua Hong Semiconductor nearly 4%. But this wasn't really a Nvidia halo effect. It was driven by expectations that a Samsung strike could redirect orders to Chinese foundries. Nvidia itself is in a strange position in China. The US government has approved H200 chip sales to Chinese tech giants like Alibaba, Tencent, and ByteDance. Twice, in fact. But Beijing has attached undisclosed conditions that have prevented a single chip from being delivered. Meanwhile, China banned Nvidia's RTX 5090D V2 gaming chip, a Blackwell architecture derivative, just hours after Jensen Huang visited Beijing with President Trump. The message from Beijing is clear. China wants to reduce dependency on American chips, even if that means walking away from Nvidia in the short term. What institutional investors are thinking. Let's quickly run through what the sell-side banks are saying, because these reports give us a good sense of where institutional sentiment is leaning. Goldman Sachs has already raised its 12-month price target from $250 to $285 per share, based on 30 times their normalized full-year EPS estimate of 9.5. Their thesis, hyperscaler capex is increasingly sustainable because Nvidia is delivering over 70% annual token cost reductions, which improves unit economics for customers and keeps the spending cycle going. Citibank highlighted the new data center segmentation as a positive, noting that the non-hyperscale business is growing faster and diversifying Nvidia's revenue base. Wedbush's Dan Ives, never one to understate things, called it another masterclass quarter and said, "The chip landscape remains Nvidia's world with everybody else paying rent." Jeffries noted that the biggest takeaway wasn't about GPUs at all, it was about the CPU disclosure. $20 billion in standalone CPU revenue in year one is pretty incredible if you think about it, just like we talked about earlier in this video. JP Morgan flagged the networking strength, $14.8 billion in networking revenue, up 35% sequentially, as evidence that Nvidia's full-stack approach is working. Remember the ecosystem argument Jensen made in the earnings call? This proves it. And to round things off with two more heavy hitters, Morgan Stanley, which has Nvidia as their top pick, dropped a stat that really puts the scale in perspective. The $13 billion of sequential revenue growth. Nvidia, just added in a single quarter, is equal to the entire quarterly revenue of the third biggest logic chip company Morgan Stanley covers. Think about that. Nvidia's growth alone is bigger than most semiconductor companies. Bank of America also has Nvidia as their top pick and raised their price target to a whopping $350 per share, one of the highest among all analysts. Although they did warn that Nvidia is now 8.3% of the S&P 500 and held by 78% of active fund managers, which mathematically limits how much more institutional money can pile in. The common thread? Everyone acknowledges the fundamentals are extraordinary, but the stock's near-term upside is constrained by elevated expectations, China overhang, and the simple reality that it's hard to surprise when you're already the most scrutinized company on the planet. Among all institution analysts, Bloomberg shows 95% of them have a buy rating on the stock, even before the earnings came out. The real question we should be asking is, when 95% of people have already bought in, where do you get that extra interest to move the stock even higher? What should we look out for? 3 things. First, Computex in early June. Historically, this is where Jensen Huang delivers roadmap updates, and any positive surprises on Rubin Ultra or the Feynman architecture could reignite the stock. Second, hyperscaler earnings for the next quarter. These include Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Meta. Their capex guidance will tell us whether the demand signal Nvidia is seeing is sustainable or peaking. Hyperscalers are expected to spend roughly $725 billion on AI capital expenditures this year. Whether this is sustainable or not, we made a whole other video about this, link in the description below and on your screen. And third, the China situation. Any breakthrough on H200 deliveries or any further deterioration will move the needle. Nvidia's China revenue has fallen from a peak of 26% to just 9%. Every percentage point of recovery there could represent billions in incremental revenue. Here's the bottom line. Nvidia just delivered one of the most impressive quarters in corporate history. 81.6 billion in revenue, 80 billion buyback and guidance that implies another record quarter ahead. If any other company on Earth posted these numbers, the stock would be up more than 10% overnight. But Nvidia isn't any other company. It's the bellwether for the entire AI industry, and the market is already looking 6 to 12 months ahead at least. The story hasn't changed. Demand is accelerating, supply is tight, competition is rising but still far behind, and the global semiconductor supply chain is riding Nvidia's coattails. The stock may be taking a breather, but the AI factory build-out that Jensen Huang keeps talking about is very much still under construction. One thing we didn't cover, the environmental cost. Nvidia's own supply chain emissions have doubled in 3 years. With data centers projected to consume 12% of US electricity within 2 years, the sustainability question isn't going away. We'll cover that in a future video. Let us know in the comments if that's something you want to see. If you found this breakdown helpful, smash that like button. It genuinely helps the channel. Drop a comment whether you think Nvidia stock is a buy, hold, or sell at these levels. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss our coverage of more deep dives. I'll see you in the next one.